Hello, everyone. So at Global Citizen, we saved the best for last. This is our final panel for today, and I just want to thank everyone who stuck around and is here with us. I'm excited to have this conversation with my good friend, Charlotte here, and really want to talk today about socially responsible investing in Africa. Socially responsible investing isn't simply charitable. Through thoughtful, socially conscious allocations, we can address many of society's most intractable challenges, such as social, economic, and environmental inequality and injustice. Ethical investors are instrumental to achieving sustainable, long-term development objectives, which in turn are crucial for improving the quality of life while achieving financial returns. I'm thrilled to be joined by my dear friend Charlotte here, who is a social entrepreneur who's really leading the charge in creating innovative solutions that tackle challenges at the intersection of the health, climate, economic nexus across Africa. Welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. My name is Charlot Magayi. Like Liz said, I'm from Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm a good friend of Global Citizen. I think they were the first supporters of the work that we do at Mukuru in 2019. Mukuru's work focuses on providing affordable, cleaner cook stoves, and now more recently, we're also providing mosquito repellent fuel. The goal is to really just tackle energy poverty and improve health outcomes for women so they're able to participate in the economy, and for young girls so they're able to stay in school and do their homework. Because as you know, I think a lot of girls, especially in rural areas, still spend up to 3 hours every single day collecting firewood, but cook stoves like Mukuru stoves can reduce that by more than 90%.
Charlotte, before we talk more about Mukuru, can you just tell us a bit more about the link between clean cooking, building healthy, resilient communities, and advancing Africa's just transition? And I know you're an activist and you've been a proponent for socially responsible investing towards addressing the energy poverty crises and also more recently, malaria elimination. So what's the connection across all of those areas where you're working?
Liz, I'm very passionate about clean cooking because we cannot talk about a just energy transition and leave out clean cooking. We still have about 900 million Africans who are still using inefficient stoves to cook, and this leads to more than 1 million deaths in spaces like East Africa, West Africa, Southern Africa as well. So for us to be able to make a just transition, we need to put clean cooking at the center of energy access. And that is the work that we're doing at Mukuru Clean Stoves, because picture this, if you're able to provide an efficient stove for a household, you're enabling them to save at least $2 every single week. And these savings go directly into better meals for their children. These savings go directly into buying books for young girls and young boys. So clean cooking touches on each point when it comes to household improvements within rural areas especially. So my work specifically focuses on that transition because I grew up in Mukuru. I used a traditional stove, and I've seen the impacts of what it looks like to not have an efficient stove within a household. And then I've also seen the impact of what it looks like to have an improved cook stove.
Thank you. Now, you've been developing your stoves for the past 7 years? And you've done a lot of fundraising over this period. And you've done most of your fundraising through a socially responsible lens. And I know that can be challenging, especially in the African context. What would you say are some of the greatest challenges that you've experienced for both investors and for you as a social entrepreneur?
Thank you. So I think for investors, the greatest challenges in social investment is just number one, it's very, very hard to measure impact. And if you're not going to get a financial return out of an investment, you at least need to be able to get impact out of it, and you need to be able to measure and monitor and report on this impact. So that is one of the few challenges. The other challenge could be the political climate. Sometimes you want to put resources in one space to address one challenge, but because elections are coming up in Kenya, you're like, let's wait. But as you're waiting, lives are being lost. As you're waiting, girls are dropping out of school. As you're waiting, women are facing domestic violence because they still need to be able to cook using inefficient stoves that put them in harm's way. So I believe that even though there are challenges when it comes to impact investments, there's still so much that can be done, and there are solutions that we can, put in place to mitigate these risks. We can create tools, to be able to transparently measure impact, to be able to report on impact in a way that boosts investors' confidence, in a way that encourages them to want to come into the markets where they need to create a bit of more impact compared to other regions.
And how do you do that while still mainstreaming elements like the integration of ethical gender considerations in determining those allocations? I know that that's something that you've been so much of a proponent for. And should we still be optimistic, Charlotte?
No,
you name a number of challenges, but is there still room for optimism?
There's a lot of room for optimism. I think every single day we sit down and we have conversations about what can be done, but we have entrepreneurs on the ground like myself that are actively doing things to ensure that we're bringing in investment in spaces where it's more and more limited. Clean cooking, for instance, has had so many challenges because a lot of people either believe they don't work, or a lot of people have too much data backing the fact that it wouldn't work. So we need to just do the reverse. Show investors, show stakeholders, show interested parties, and these are even households that we communicate to that they need to use better cook stoves. Show
messenger, having trusted emissaries. And so for us as global citizens, what can we do? What can we do to be able to get the message out that this is, in fact, a critical issue that warrants our attention and our action now?
I think, like we were just talking about it, going the extra mile for every single stakeholder. It's one thing to do your part and then walk away, but it's another thing to do your part and ensure that you are handing over that entrepreneur, that organization to the next partner, the next resource that is going to get them to the same level. So I was just telling Liz that we need to start measuring the success of investors based on the success of the entrepreneurs that they've backed past their support.
Wait, say that again.
So
I want to make sure everyone heard that point. I think it's a very important point.
Mm-hmm. So the point I'm trying to make is if you invest in Mukuru clean stoves and we achieve impact using your resources, that's not enough measurement for impact investors. We need to make sure that we are measuring them based on the success that is achieved by these social entrepreneurs after their support, after their backing. And that will put...
So it's reimagining how we're measuring impact, right? And so once that investor has exited, looking at the success of the organizations beyond the lifespan of that investment, right?
Yeah, basically,
I think that's pretty bold.
I think what Global Citizen does is pretty amazing, but after the support that you provide, after the advocacy that you provide, what else are you doing?
Yeah, so it's not just opening the doors and granting access, but it's actually going on the journey with that investor, with that entrepreneur, and providing ongoing support beyond that initial introduction, so to speak. Great, great. So Charlotte, you were awarded a very prestigious prize, the Earthshot Prize by Prince William. Congratulations, congratulations.
Thank you.
I think the cool kids would do this.
I guess I'm not cool.
I think the cool kids would do this now, double snaps. So what would you say is the role of governments? And you started to allude to that earlier, but governments, the private sector, impact investors, and global citizens towards promoting responsible investing in support of new tools and innovations, such as the Mukuru stove, which you've developed, which are addressing multiple issues across and providing multiple benefits, really. You're also providing mosquito-repelling, clean cooking products. And so what would you say is the role of each of these disparate actors to ensure that we can continue to drive capital flows into support of these sort of initiatives?
Let's talk about malaria for a minute. I think I've worked in clean cooking for 7 years, and more recently, I joined the fight against malaria as well. And according to the World Health Organization, between 2000 and 2020, malaria-related mortality reduced by 60%. And this is attributed to investment in prevention of malaria over those 20 years. But climate change is complicating issues now. So malaria is now becoming a climate issue.
We're seeing malaria in regions where we previously did not have malaria. We're seeing mosquitoes. I live in New York, and we have mosquitoes in the summer, which wasn't the case. And we're seeing malaria across the continent. We'd seen 20 years. For 20 years, we'd seen a decline. And now we're back up on the rise.
Because of climate change.
Absolutely.
Higher altitudes are now reporting malaria, and it's very confusing. But it shouldn't be. I think what we need to do, and we need to, again, work with governments, private sector, and impact investors to invest in data so we can use predictive modeling to be able to project, and provide resources before these disasters strike. And Mukuru Clean Stoves is trying to do that with our mosquito repellent fuels that enable households to, as they're cooking, also repel mosquitoes. And for each burn, this allows you to repel mosquitoes for up to 6 hours. What governments can do, in my opinion, would just to build more infrastructure, and try to create an ecosystem where there's subsidies and incentives for local communities to adopt clean cooking solutions. Private sector just needs to invest a little bit more in these spaces, in social impact work, to ensure that they're not just doing the CSR thing that they do for fun and then they leave. It needs to become a long-term investment strategy, so that we are not leaving communities naked after we've pulled out resources from them, after we've had them, buy products from us, made money, and then leaving. It needs to...
Which way impact, social impact, as heavily as return on financial return?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest problems for clean cooking for the longest time is they were project-based, initiatives. And once you leave, people are not using clean stoves anymore. People are stove stacking. People are going back to using open fires. And impact investors just need to focus a little bit more on impact. I mean, their name is impact investors, but a lot of them still put too much stress on financial returns. And we need to find a way to make impact sexy, or just a little bit sexier, so that you can put aside your appetite for financial returns, so you're able to really benefit households, benefit communities, before you're able to pull out the resources. Because that always happens.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that always happens. If you stay for a minute, if you allow entrepreneurs and social enterprises to do the work for a while longer, then you're able to pull out even more financial return. But first, impact has to be at the center of it all.
So let's make impact sexy. That's the key takeaway, Charlotte.
That's the key takeaway.
Okay. Well, Charlotte, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Any parting thoughts for our audience? Any final thoughts?
I was talking to one of the guys from Nigeria. I forget his name, but he was saying these conversations are so fun to have. And it's really good to be able to have conversations and see how excited people are. So we have an empty room right now, well, semi-empty. But those of us who are staying, like, if you've had a conversation that could be productive, let's carry on with that. Let's not just see Abidjan and put a mark on our maps on the fridge. I've been there, done that. Let's make sure that we are also creating impact to the conversations that we're having by continuing them and drawing resources towards the people who deserve them.
And remembering that this isn't just about being charitable, right? Well, thank you, Charlotte. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.